When you see headlines about Mexico, it's always about the big stuff, right? Elections, cartels, massive protests. But what's really going on underneath all that? Well, that's what we're going to get into. To really get Mexico, you have to look past the surface. You have to look at the country's actual operating system. So, let's start with this quote. It's pretty provocative, isn't it? The idea that a government isn't just some random thing that happens to a country, but that it's a direct reflection of its society. It's a tough pill to swallow, but let's see if it holds true for Mexico. And this slide right here, this just nails the central conflict. From the outside, looking in, you see all the signs of a thriving democracy. You see protests, you see marches, you see elections. But according to our sources, the reality on the ground is something totally different. It's a deep-seated fatalism, a widespread apathy, and this immense pressure to just conform. And that brings us to our first big idea, what the source calls the democratic illusion. The argument is pretty simple. Mexico has all the window dressing of a democracy, but the core, the active, critical participation of its people is just missing. It's hollow. So this illusion is really built on this first layer of the problem, a civically hollow culture. In this world, the whole relationship between you and the government isn't about shared goals or civic duty. Nope, it's transactional. It's all about what you can get, not what you can build together. I mean, just look at the scale of disengagement here. It's staggering. Half the country doesn't even show up to vote. And for a lot of the people who do, the decision isn't based on who has the best policies. It's about who's handing out the most subsidies, who has the catchiest slogan, or, as the source puts it, who seems like a hero from a telenovela. And this number explains so much. 60% of the population is working in the informal economy. That means no benefits, no job security, no safety net whatsoever. The source makes a really powerful point here. Poverty isn't a bug in the system, it's a feature. Because let's be real, when you're struggling to survive day to day, engaging in politics is a luxury you just can't afford. And this mindset, it starts early. The public education system is described as totally underfunded and politicized. So instead of teaching kids critical thinking and how to be an engaged citizen, it basically trains them to just endure, to adjust to the way things are. It teaches them to distrust change, not to demand it. So what you end up with is what the source calls the tyranny of consensus. In any public debate, keeping the group happy is way more important than finding the truth. If you disagree, you're not just wrong, you're a traitor. And forget about rational discussion. It just gets drowned out by whoever is the loudest and most emotional. The president uses this all the time, talking about el pueblo, the people, as if they're this single, unified mob, which completely erases any space for you, the individual, to disagree. So, okay, if the civic culture is hollow, what is the state actually built on? Well, that brings us to the next layer, corruption's operating system. And the key thing to understand here is that corruption isn't just a few bad apples. No, it is the literal code that runs the entire country. And this system actually has a name, negotiated illegality. It's basically the unwritten rulebook that everyone actually follows. From the cop on the street taking a bribe to a state governor cutting a deal with traffickers, the whole machine is designed to reward people for breaking the rules and to punish anyone who tries to act with integrity. And what that means is that the rule of law, well, it's a complete mirage. Sure, the laws are on the books, but they're only enforced when it's politically convenient. Justice isn't blind, it's for sale to the highest bidder, or it's used as a weapon against your enemies. And this number, this just shows you the devastating human cost of it all. We're talking about 150,000 people sitting in prison waiting for a trial. They haven't been convicted of anything. They are just trapped. Stuck for years in a system where justice is completely arbitrary, and for many, never actually comes. And this dysfunction goes all the way down to the local level. In Mexico's thousands of municipalities, the municipios, it's actually more profitable to have disorder than order. I mean, think about it. Why would local officials go through the trouble of legalizing and taxing street vendors when they can just collect cash fees under the table every single day? That would kill the cash cow. Disorder literally pays the bills. Okay, so now we get to the deepest and honestly the most disturbing layer of this whole thing, the state and its partners. This is where the source argues that the line between the government and organized crime has basically vanished. The state isn't really fighting crime anymore, it's managing it.
So in this system, you don't punish criminals. You punish the people who refuse to be criminals. You punish the ones who won't play by the unwritten rules. And there's a really chilling story that illustrates this perfectly. So this was the mayor of a city called Orwapan. He made a decision. Instead of accommodating organized crime, he was going to confront it head on. He knew exactly what that meant. He started wearing a bulletproof vest everywhere and was literally begging the federal government for protection. He was murdered anyway, during a public Day of the Dead celebration. And his death wasn't random. It was a message sent by the system to anyone else out there who might be thinking of stepping out of line. It says, "This is what happens when you refuse to play our game." Which brings us to the current president, Claudia Sheinbaum. On the world stage, she's seen as this brilliant, progressive scientist. But inside Mexico, the view is different. She's often called a maceta, which means flower pot. The idea is that she's just a decorative figurehead, basically holding the soil for the real power that's growing behind the scenes. And a massive part of that hidden power is the military. Their role has just exploded, way beyond national security. They're now a construction company. They run the nation's customs. They even operate their own airline. They have effectively become a shadow government, with enormous power and absolutely zero civilian oversight. So how do people even live in a system like this? That brings us to our final section, which really gets at this profound paradox at the very heart of the Mexican identity. It's this strange mix of total resignation and a fierce, unbreakable love. You see, what's so easy to call apathy from the outside, it's really not. It's a survival mechanism, learned over decades and decades of disappointment. People have just internalized that nothing better is possible, so they don't fight the system. They endure it. And this slide just captures that paradox so perfectly. On one hand, Mexicans deeply distrust their government, their institutions, the police. But on the other hand, they have this fierce, passionate love for their land, their culture, and their people. Their national identity exists in spite of the state, not because of it. And so that's the powerful question we're left with. This deep love that Mexicans have for their country, it's undeniable. So the question is, what would it finally take for them to stand up and demand a government that is actually worthy of that love?